Righty. Good morning or good evening from wherever it is that you may be joining us from in the world. And my name is Holly Menard. I am an end of life, or you could say death doula. And in my experience over the years, I've realized that grief is something that is really difficult for some people, and it can be even more difficult for others. So the intention of these interviews really is to address the universal difficulty that we have in talking about death and dying and grief. And this grief is normal. It's a normal response to a major loss. And I've learned in the process of these interviews that these open conversations, and for people, my guests, to tell their story, that what ends up happening is that, we're revealing shared fears. We all have them, our own fears, right? Fears, regrets, and even maybe some shame around how the events unfolded. And all that is to assure us that we're not alone. So these stories of healing are intended to offer encouragement and strength and courage that may involve forgiving ourselves and forgiving others in the process. They help us to grieve, to find some inner strength, and discover that we have some unique gifts that have come out of this experience, and that we might want to share them with others, as in this case today. So again, my name's Holly Menard. Oh, and it's July the 5th, 2024. And my guest here is Mac. And Mac, I'll give you the opportunity now to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I suppose it makes sense to say what my age and who died and how long ago they died, just for perspective. I'm 78 years old, and when my wife, who was 1 year younger than me, died, she was 60 or 61. And so it's been 14 years since she died. And we dated for 4 years before we were married, and we were coming up on our 42nd anniversary when she died. She died of breast cancer that showed back up as a metastasis 2 years after she'd had a lumpectomy and radiation treatment and chemotherapy. And so we had sort of put the thing to bed, thinking we'd done all we could, and having known a lot of other friends with breast cancer who'd had that same kind of treatment and were living just fine for a long period of time. So we were surprised when it came back. It came back 2 years after that treatment, and as a backache that Laura had. And I urged her to go to the oncologist. The oncologist where we were suggested that anything you have that's medically related or you have questions about, you start with oncology, and they will triage you to the part of the clinic system, health system, that you needed to be at. Well, it turned out that her back pain was related to the fact that she had metastatic breast cancer disease in every bone in her spine and other bones. So her skeleton was riddled with cancer. So it had come back in a ferocious form. And just as a brief outline of what happened after that, she lasted 18 months after that metastatic disease diagnosis. And during that period, she had 3 chemotherapies, some radiation treatment, and never gave up wanting to live, and was in a frame of mind where, whereas I think some people dying talk about life of the spouse after death or they talk about what to do about assets or parenting issues or relative issues. She did not have any of that and only was interested in living another day and was constantly asking me, don't I know of some clinical trial she could enter? And of course, I was in touch very frequently with her oncologist. And she was very convincing that they were doing everything they could. And at some point, near the end of that 18 months, the oncologist brought us in to her office and turned to Laura and said, I'll just be honest, there's nothing else we know to do. And still, Laura was, I don't want to die, and was kind of thinking and doing whatever she could to deal with that. There wasn't a period where, well, she did admit that she knew she was dying toward the end, but it didn't convert to, so there are things we need to talk about as I'm dying. None of that. She was, I think, different from some people in terms of how she wanted just to concentrate on living. And it was very hard, very hard.
And could I interject something here?
Yeah, interject all you want, because I'm just rattling off here, and you probably should give me some guidance.
Sure, sure. I remember you telling me what an extraordinary woman it is that you met on a blind date, right?
Yes,
And,
yes.
and that you soon learned that she was brilliant beyond what, most people could imagine, right? And so she had quite a career. She had quite a life.
Yeah, she did. She was a very beautiful woman and really, really like scary smart. The she when she decided to go to law school, she made the highest grade on the law school admissions test that is possible to make. And she was first in her class all 3 years of law school in the law review.
Wow.
And by a significant margin was first in the class. She was constantly being given awards from book companies giving her books and the school giving her uh, some kind of recognition. And she was, you could tell she was smart just by, she was not very she was introverted and not very flashy or extroverted about her thoughts. But if you asked her what she was thinking, it was always very insightful and processed with a really smart analytical capability. And I just from right from the start had very really high respect for her intellectual capabilities. And she also had a terrific sense of humor, was for the most part fun to be with, and understood and got humor with the best of them. I guess anecdotally, so we had one child who's um, 51 or 2 years old now, and Laura was an incredibly smart parent. She read a lot about parenting and was had a very successful career as a law professor, and was very, very strongly recognized by some of the best law professors in the country in her field, which was nonprofit organizations and tax exempt organizations.
Mhm.
So that gives you a little flash of who she was. It was a 42-year marriage, so I can't say everything went smoothly every day.
Right.
So some of that was just hard without the cancer, but I think that's almost universal with people I know. The
Absolutely.
half that she died after the metastatic diagnosis was absolutely horrible. It was just so painful to watch someone gradually die who wanted so badly to live. And you can't find, I couldn't find rationale in it. I couldn't I couldn't explain even to myself why I was alive and she was dying.
Yeah.
After she died, why I'm still living and she died. She was healthier than I am, except for the cancer. And the genetics of her family was that she and her family lived to ripe old ages. So her dying so early was an exception to her, what I'll say is her genetic profile.
Sure. And I'm sure that she was holding on to that desire to live because she had so much to live for,
She
right?
had plans, yeah, she wasn't anywhere near retirement from her law school professorship, but she had a lot of pretty concrete plans for things she wanted to do after she retired. And they were things like a lot of craft stuff. She was a very fast and skilled knitter, and
Mhm.
she had plans she was collecting uh, pieces of fabric to make quilts for kids who are hospitalized with cancer. And that was before she knew anything about her own cancer. Anyway, she had these, for a list of 4 or 5 things that she really wanted to do. And of course, never got to them.
Yeah. And plus that you were renovating, in the process of renovating a
Yes.
house, right?
So our only daughter, was in North Carolina. So and we were in Ohio. But the when she got the metastatic diagnosis was the same week that we learned that Adrian, our daughter, was pregnant. And Laura would have been ecstatic had she gotten the pregnancy news before the metastatic news, but they happened within a day of each other. And it was just a day of sort of my mental
Mm.
chaos. I mean, I wanted to be excited about the new baby coming, and I felt sad about the metastatic disease diagnosis because I could see on the screen the radiogram showed how far along it was, and I'm no stranger to that world. So um, it was devastating. So I'd say that was the day our lives just changed, and I
Mm.
was we were visiting our daughter in North Carolina for Thanksgiving. So going there for Thanksgiving, getting the cancer diagnosis and finding out about the baby coming all happened within a couple of days. And after about 4 or 5 days, I decided that we should buy a house in North Carolina near our daughter so that Laura could be in North Carolina with a sort of pliable schedule, but not be under the same roof as Adrian, who
Mhm.
her husband, of course, had their own life
Yeah.
going. And so that that was probably the best decision that I made related to Laura's death, because she loved renovation. She loved thinking about uh, beauty of spaces and furniture and furnishings. And it was just a hobby going on in her head all the time. She liked watching this channel called HGTV, which I hated. But
Mm.
to me, it was just one show after another designed to make me feel guilty about things I hadn't done to the house.
Mm.
Um, so with buying the new house, there's no way we would have bought a house anywhere, anytime without her wanting to renovate a lot of it. So we found a fabulous architect and just the three of us, the architect and Laura and I, just had a blast meeting and
Mm.
working on all these renovations. And that went on for months. And I thought, because she, for medical reasons, had to leave her professorship and not teach and go on medical leave, I think she would have been stir crazy without this planning, this renovation. So that worked beautifully, and she was happy. She loved the architect, and we just had a lot of fun. She died before we could do any renovation, although we had over months decided how we were going to do and what we were going to do to the house. And I decided uh, after about, I don't know, maybe close to a year after she died, I decided to go ahead and do the renovation on the house. And she had come to me, but right before she died, and said, she said, "I know you wanted to buy that house just to give me something to do." And she said, I really loved working on the renovation, but your life has to go on in some other way. So if you don't want to do the renovation, don't feel obligated." So I thought that was a generous thing to think about. But I went ahead and did the renovation anyway, because we'd had so much fun planning it, and that seemed to, I don't know, maybe please me or something, or pull something out of this that
Mhm.
had a positive outcome. And the renovated house was beautiful afterwards, renovated. So
Mm.
um,
And
where do you want me to go here?
well, not everybody has the opportunity to say goodbye right then and there. Like
Correct.
when your beloved wife took her last breaths, you were right there with her.
Yes, I was. She had lost consciousness in the last hour, and just held her hand and kept telling her that I loved her, and because I knew she could hear, even though she was really non-responsive, and at some point just took her last breath.
Yeah.
I think I know your interest here is in grief, and wanted to make a couple of comments about that, if that's
Go
okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
So I paid a lot of attention to what I was hearing from people whose point of view I trusted, the oncologist and some other people, and about sort of how to handle this myself. And after Laura died, and people were saying two things that stuck with me and that I paid attention to. One is, don't make any big decisions about your life for a year. And the other was, if people reach out to you and ask you to do things, go and do them, even if you don't want to. And I think those were both good advices. I had people around me who were very generous about their support and caring for me. So I had at least 7 dinner invitations every week, and I tried to go out to as many of them as I could. And that went on for months. And I didn't make any real big decisions for that first year. So those were probably helpful and good things. But the other thing that was happening was people were saying, "Oh, you must go through the grieving process. You have to grieve. Don't forget to grieve." I mean, there were 10 different ways of saying this. And my response to that was to get through. Well, ended up getting 3 books on grief and read them all and kind of thought about them. And I can tell you that none of them were really emotionally or intellectually responsive to what I needed. They were interesting books. I read Joan Didion's book on what it was like after her husband died, but her husband died at the dinner table one night without any symptoms. So I don't think watching someone die for 18 months is relatable to somebody dying from 1 minute to the next. And um, I don't think I learned much from that, except learning about what she went through.
Mhm.
So I'm still to this day perplexed about what it means to go through the grieving process. Did I think about it a lot? Did I cry? Did I read about it? I attempted in my sort of weak little way myself to find out about how to go through grief, and I still don't know.
Hmm.
And I ended up thinking, and I don't know if this is helpful to anybody but me, but I ended up thinking that in 10 spousal deaths, I think there are 10 different stories and 10 different emotional responses.
Absolutely.
And I know this guy on TV, Anderson Cooper, has uh, written about and had shows about grief. And I didn't watch them. They're recent. And
About
I,
his mother, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
his mother. And I thought that would have been important, but at the time that's on TV, I'm 13 years past Laura's death. And a lot has happened in that 13 years. And I may be still grieving. I may not still be grieving. I don't know what that means. And but people are very quick to say that. In fact, uh, a year and a half after Laura died, I met a woman and fell in love. And a year and a half after that, I married her. And I divorced her 7 years after that marriage. So, um, to put that into perspective, Laura died 3 years later. I was marrying a woman that I dated for a year and a half, and 3.5 years after that, I wasn't interested in the marriage anymore, and after 7 years of that, left it. So there's another 3 years past that marriage folding,
Mhm.
and I still don't know what grief is.
Mhm.
So I'm sure I should be grieving about the divorce, except I was the one doing the divorcing, and I wanted out of it. So
Yeah.
uh, that's probably a very different process. But maybe I should be doing more about grieving now. It's just that I think after 13 years and going through a second marriage and divorce, maybe I should accept the fact that I'm not going to figure it out.
And can that be okay?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why it wouldn't be okay, but
Yeah.
I also don't know what I'm missing, since I don't understand what people are talking about when
Mhm.
they say to me, you need to go through this grieving process.
What if it was something it's not simple and it's not, to come up even with coming up with a definition for grief. But how about if just to try this on is that you're living every day in the experience in some way. I don't know if you get memories coming to you still, or if it's some kind of a trigger.
Mhm.
Maybe you're out and about and you see a license plate, or you read a book, you see a headline, something is reminding you.
So I can comment on that because you've said some concrete things here, and I'm definitely aware of some of them, so I can speak to it. And what I'd say about that is, um, I'm still sad when I think about her because she didn't want to die, and I can't unravel the puzzle of me being alive and her being dead. Um, I don't shy away from talking to our daughter about her death.
Mhm.
That comes up now and then. And if I'm telling somebody something about Laura, I do sort of get choked up and
Yeah.
can usually keep talking, but I'm aware that I'm having an emotional response to that. So I'm having an emotional response to her death still, but I don't know, is that part of the grieving process? Am I successfully grieving by doing that? I really don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, about 2 years after she died, I was sitting in the newly renovated house, 2 years probably. And I was thinking about Laura, and had been all by myself for a few days, and I just started crying. and I couldn't stop crying. I finally telephoned my sister in Baltimore, and she answered the phone, and I said, can you talk to me for a bit? I can't stop crying.
Mm.
And we talked for a while, and pretty soon could find some stuff to laugh about, and I got over it, but I literally couldn't stop crying.
Mhm.
So I'm still amazed by how sad her death was.
Yeah.
Just amazed by that. I mean, it was so sad. If I start to talk about it, I just think it was just so sad.
Yeah.
I was with my father the night before he died, and with my mother holding her hand when she died. And I thought I had known sadness from those two experiences, and realized after Laura died that I hadn't come close to understanding sadness, because her dying was a sadness I've never been around the likes of.
Yeah.
I find for myself, and maybe for people like me, maybe I'm not the only one out there who can't can't grasp what all these people are talking about.
Mhm.
Did I grieve? I don't know. I cried. I talked about her and her death with anybody who, you know, could tolerate the talk.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one observation about myself that may be as influential to others is I felt after she died some new pessimism in my head. And
Mhm.
that pessimism had to do with how quickly someone who's here and living and vibrant can become less vibrant and dead.
Yeah.
Think about that could happen to me. That could happen to my daughter. That could happen to my now granddaughter. And this pessimism has been has been something that I'm aware of, and I'm all my life have been very happy-go-lucky, love to laugh, love to be with people who laugh, and I'm different now in that it's not that I don't have experiences where I laugh with friends, but there's something going on in my head that has this sort of pessimism built into it, and it influences what I might plan to do or not plan to do.
Mhm.
And my uh, personal physician uh, was an incredibly smart man he was just really good at what he did, and well educated beyond medicine.
Yeah.
And I was having a checkup with him, and I described, just as I'd done to you just now, this
Mhm.
pessimism that's following me around. And I asked him, I said, you're a smart guy, you've been around a while, you've seen people like me come and go. When will I not feel this anymore?
Mm.
And he said, never, it won't go away. And I mean, so far he's right. It's not deciding every decision I make in my life, and it's not keeping me depressed or anything like that, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I lost my son unexpectedly, right? I've shared some of that with you.
I can't imagine what that was
It
like.
doesn't go away. I think the thing of it for me was realizing that this incredible grief and searching to find meaning and purpose in it all, and having moments of joy, like you said. It's not like you don't have those moments. It's not like you don't find yourself laughing with your friends. And yet there's this other piece that's
Yeah,
always there.
just
But maybe
blocking.
it's there a little less of the time than what it used to be.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And I don't think there's any way that you can say that somebody's successfully or unsuccessfully grieved.
Well,
I don't, yeah,
when people tell you, have you grieved enough? You need to grieve enough. There's this implication coming to you in those questions
yeah,
that suggests that there is such a thing as a process that you can finish and then you're done. That's the that's what that's the context in which these questions are asked. And I think maybe that's the wrong context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the question is, has it helped? As maybe contemplate the various comments that you've heard, maybe even from people that you really respect and know that they care about you and really want to be helpful, right?
If
But they're
that's
not going to necessarily be helpful
Yeah,
when
I
it
would
comes
say
to,
if that's how you would define the grieving process, then I would say, okay, I've been through the grieving process. But I don't know that I don't know that I'm in a better frame of mind than if I hadn't gone through whatever this process is. That's confusing to me.
yeah, yeah. Oh, Lordy. And that's so understandable, Matt, that would be your experience. And I would be the last person to put any kind of label on. I don't think grief has a time frame to it. I think as
Don't
long
either.
as we're alive, we're gonna have moments. And it's 9 years this year since my son died. And I have moments where sometimes
Uh,
I do cry uncontrollably.
yeah,
And
I'd be surprised if you didn't. I mean, based on my own experience, and I think losing a child, it's more serious even than losing a spouse. And losing a spouse is more serious than losing a parent. But I can imagine the label of grief being what you're going through applies to all of them.
it does. And that's why these interviews, I feel, are so important. And I really, I appreciate how you've shared, maybe something about my experience. You out there may be able to identify with. And then it fulfills the intention that I have,
Yeah,
that what we realize is that we're not alone. It's like, oh, okay, I'm not, I don't have like a sickness. I'm not like wrong mentally.
I would
There
say
are
that
other people out there that are experiencing this too.
I think that's an important part of learning your way through this. And I'd say another important part is the expectation that your grief is going to look like somebody else's grief should not apply.
Yeah,
It's restricting your emotions to a pathway and a, a tunnel that maybe isn't your tunnel. And that it's misleading for you, or it's leaving something out for you if your process is different from whatever people are telling you it should be.
absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I would say it's definitely not. We've touched on it a bit, but I think that whenever anyone speaks in that kind of way, it's like a trigger, I would imagine, in your mind. It's like, but no, that's not my experience.
Yeah.
That may be yours, but it's not mine. And
Well,
here's the thing, it's not helping me. So please don't bring that up.
yeah, that's really, I think the issue around that is that it's not helpful to everyone
Mm-hmm.
because it's claiming universality to something that's more diverse.
Yeah. I think you've addressed everything actually because you've shared so many wise words of what has come forth from no, seriously, from your experience. And it matches up with your experience. And I'm going to say there is someone that will listen, maybe a number of people that will listen to this interview and it'll be, you know, I don't like, a kind of a relief. It's like,
It
yeah,
would have been a relief for me to hear that early on,
mm-hmm,
that
yeah,
that's expectations not the same as everybody else's. Well, I hope it's beneficial to somebody. I think it's a tough subject and I think it's a tough thing to go through. But there are lots
absolutely.
of tough things to go through in life.
Yeah, and your gift, you've been stating it, your gift is, hey, guys, hey, however you're processing this experience of intense loss, unconceivable loss, is yours, and to honor it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's well said.
Yeah. So Mac, thank you so much for your time. I
No,
I
no,
appreciate it. I know many people appreciate it as well.
no, that would be good that something like that would come of it. Thanks
Yeah,
very much.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's totally what this is all about. Um, hold on one quick second here. Oh, no. There we go.